Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Baidu. I am going to be the host of this AMA event today. Before we kick off, though, I'm actually just going to kick off a quick poll to sort of just see some of your experiences with boards. Just two questions, seeing if you participated in a board before and what you think the leading reason why people don't join boards of directors. So if you could just answer this poll really quick, it'd be a huge help to us. But yeah, we're going to get ready to kick off in just about a minute. Okay. All right, flashing back in here. Thanks so much for answering the poll. So we're going to get ready to kick things off right now. So I'd like to invite the two panelists we have, Amanda Rheaume and Kesi Smyth, to turn on their cameras.
Hello.
Hi, folks.
Hello.
Awesome. So Amanda and Kesi are first-time board members with CIMA. They're actually also running for re-election this year, so which is pretty exciting. So they're honestly, in my opinion, the ideal choice is to just talk about what it's like to be new on a board of directors, especially CIMAs in this context. And we'll be also fielding questions in the Q&A as well, but I've got a bunch of questions for them, and I'm happy to just sort of jump in. But before we do that, I think it's obviously best to start off with you guys introducing yourselves. So you want to start with Amanda, if that's okay.
Yeah, right on. Anin Bojo, Amanda Rheaume Adijnakas. So I'm a citizen of the Métis Nation. My Métis family comes from Red River. My Anishinaabe family comes from Lac Seul, which is northwestern Ontario. My settler side of my family comes from both Scotland and Germany, and I am excited to be here today. I am coming from Tekaronto, so it's the traditional territory of Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and lots of other, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people live here now. I am from unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, also known as Ottawa, and I'm co-founder of Ishkode Records. I'm also an artist and do a bunch of different things in the industry, but those are the most relevant right here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to have you. And next we have Kesi.
Hi, I am Kesi Smyth. I am over on the other side in Victoria, BC. I'm from Vancouver and work out of Vancouver. I'm the general manager and human resources at 604 Records. I've been there for 17, going on 18 years now. Yeah, long time in the industry. I'm new to the CIMA board of directors, but have been working around these people on these teams for quite a while. So yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Honestly, thank you both so much for coming here. You're both I can say to everyone who's watching that I am the staff liaison for CIMA's board. I guess I should also maybe introduce myself a bit. My name is Matthew Baidu. I work for CIMA in Music Ontario. I'm the funding and operations coordinator. And I'm also, as I just said, the staff liaison for CIMA's board of directors. So I show up to all the meetings. I try to know the bylaws inside out, and I take all the minutes and everything. So I'm happy to also sort of just talk about joining the board, especially with you two. So to just sort of kick things off, I thought I'd ask, have you guys ever participated on a board of directors prior to joining CIMA? And if so, could you describe your experiences?
I haven't been on a board of directors before. I've been on a few committees, advisory committees, that kind of thing. But no, this was my first experience with it. And I don't know if we're going to dive into that any further, but so far it's been a great experience.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I've been on one and still am on another board for Dark Spark. It's an arts organization that works with youth and empowers them to use song and expression to fight social injustices and create change. So that's the only other board that I've sat on. But this was also my first time on the CIMA board, and I love being on boards. I wish I could clone myself so I could do more of them, but I think it's a really important role.
Yeah, that's actually a great sort of segue into potentially talking about Kesi's point about you haven't been on a board before. I just did this poll. We had a very limited turnout, but I think the answers do speak a lot. The attendees believe that the leading cause of not joining a board of directors is time commitment. Has that sort of factored into your own experience of why you haven't joined a board previously, or is there anything else that sort of led to your potential apprehension or hesitancy to put your name up?
I will say that since I've joined this board, I've received invites to join many other boards. And so I've sort of maximized my capacity for board attendance at this point. I'm on a couple others as well. It does take up some time, but not as much as I think people are afraid of. And I think it depends on how much you put into it. So like there's, the minimum requirements. There's like a monthly meeting. Usually boards require that there's also like a committee responsibility. So you also would join a committee or two, and those are sort of the same once a month, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what's going on in the committee. I think you are totally capable of joining multiple committees and, being an executive board member and spending as much time on it as you have. But if you're trying to manage it with other career aspects, I think it is really doable. At least it has been for me. And I have 2 children and, manage a company. So it's like, I was worried about that too, but so far it's been very manageable.
Oh, for sure. And you've been killing it in your first year. I also even want to just say to Amanda, could you actually talk a bit about ArtSpark? What led you to that board of directors? Did you have a previous sort of participation in that organization before?
Yeah, so Dark Spark is run by friends of mine living in Prince Edward County, just near Tyndonega. And I worked with them as an arts educator. So we would travel to different communities and work with the youth there, writing songs. And so in that scenario, I had a firsthand experience with what the organization did, and really, I got it from the very beginning before joining the board. And it's a small board, and that, I think when you're getting involved with an organization on any level, whether you're becoming a contractor or on a committee or on the board, you have to really care about what that organization is doing, and sort of see yourself there. And they're friends of mine, and I believe in their work so deeply that I was like, yeah, for sure. Let's talk about this on a different level than me just showing up to work with youth. But if you go to Dark Spark, I think it's .org. I'll look it up, but they're amazing. I love that organization. And as far as Sema goes, I've been an independent musician for 18 years, and I've known about Sema and done lots of stuff with Music Ontario. Super grateful for that. But I will say, when I joined the Sema board, I wasn't in the same position as having a deep understanding of what Sema really did. And so that was a bit of a different experience compared to my other board that I'm still on. And just to reflect on the time commitment concern that just when you were talking, Kesi, it's like my experience with both boards, but I'll speak about Sema, the organization of the meetings and the flow of info, it's so easy to be on this board because it's so well organized, and it's just very I think it could really not be that way. I could sense, you know, for some places potentially, but this is such a pleasure, you know, to do this work on this board because of the staff like yourself and the entire company. That makes a really, really big difference.
Man, that's very nice of you to say. I know.
It's just true.
Yeah,
It was
like the
very
whole crew
true.
is a bunch of rock stars. I love working with everybody. And we got to have an in-person team meeting recently, which was just a ton of fun. But just to sort of jump off of that point, like you were talking about your own sort of perception about SEMA's operations, which I have to admit, I think anyone would admit, it is sort of mysterious what we're up to at some points. Like, especially like just because I think inherently the music industry, not every sort of layman totally gets like the functions or like all the roles that go into making things work. So I actually just thought I'd sort of take that moment to ask you, both of you, like how did, like upon joining as a director, how did you previously perceive SEMA's governance structure from the outside looking in? And were there any striking differences between your perception of the board's operations and reality?
I can speak to that really quick. I had zero idea of what it was all about, and I think the thing that what I've learned is that it's actually a small team that works at the company itself, and then the board is actually, I think, bigger. Is that true?
That is true.
So and I think that that's important to say because the team at SEMA works so hard, you know, and there's not a lot of resources. And then there's this board that's actually made up of more humans than the actual staff. So I think that's a misconception that I was probably sitting with, you know, that it's this, sometimes these organizations actually are quite understaffed and, you know, they rely heavily on the advisory and of the board. So that's something I learned.
Yeah, I also had no idea what to expect or truthfully like what SEMA did until I really dove into it. I knew like I had done some initiatives with SEMA on, you know, within my company in terms of my artists and mostly travel missions and stuff like that, where we were going to Madame or whatever it was. So I knew that part of it. I knew that there was some seminars and help in terms of travel and development, but I did not have any clue what SEMA did in terms of advocacy and just like keeping an eye on the entire industry. It really was a learning curve for me to figure out and to realize how well connected the SEMA board creates relationships and how like the network sort of works. I'm really appreciative for that now. I feel like I have a much better grip on what's going on over the industry and across Canada. Which has been really helpful. And I think it maybe could be more transparent to the general industry in terms of how well connected SEMA really is.
Oh, for sure. I definitely think like even just something strategically we're working on is being more transparent about our branding, more transparent about what we do, what we've accomplished. We don't take credit for things nearly as much as we should. Like whether it's
global economy is about patting yourself on the back now. So
honestly, you gotta be much more self-congratulatory.
Yeah.
Like but yeah, it's definitely something we're working on. And you both brought up really, really great points, especially even just in terms of like the learning curve. Like we do get pretty weedsy when it comes to board discussions sometimes. So I just thought I'd ask you, like, how steep did you find it jumping into it, especially given both of you had fairly limited perceptions of how joining our board would look like? Like, how did you sort of handle it? Was there anything you relied on to get through some things that were like totally new or alien to you?
Do you want to go first?
I think I relied on Shauna on the board. She immediately reached out and gave me a call and was like, here's what I know of the board. And she's been on it a long time. So she was a great resource. A few people definitely reached out and sort of held my hand, at least for the initial part. And it just was nice to kind of know I'm walking into a friendly group, and I like everybody on the board is very supportive and introduced themselves and reached out. And I've had, you know, in the beginning had calls with pretty much everyone on the board to get a sense of how they approached it and what the experience has been like. So The learning curve was steep just in terms of like I had no idea what to expect, but it wasn't difficult. It was actually very easy to walk into this group and feel okay to use my voice pretty quickly. So it didn't feel intimidating.
Yeah, totally. Same. Also felt the learning curve was steep, but not in a negative way, like in an exciting way. And I was just launching a record label, so I was like doing all this new stuff, and I know, like, I don't know if those that are watching, like, and I think we joined at the same time, but it was like right at the start of all the CRTC radio review and like all of these massive things going on at a political and bureaucratic and policy level, that it was like really jumping into the deep end, like very, very immediately. And I echo that everybody was so, at the very beginning and still, so kind, so giving of their time. I mean, I'd call Gord, and I had to get him to explain like what some people may think are the simplest things. I was like, I don't get it. And he spent so much time with me, and same with Shauna, and honestly, like Tim, almost everybody I spoke with specifically. And it is definitely, for such a big group, like the friendliest, most welcoming board ever, and helpful. And it felt like, and it became for me like this thing of, if I needed something, or if a board member needed something from me, like it just, everyone was like just in super good communication. It wasn't like, oh, is it okay if I ask you this? Can I call you? It was just like, yeah, get on the phone. And in this industry and on such a big landmass, like that's kind of key, I think, to be connected like that and to be so available.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I'm glad that you had such a great experience with our other directors, especially the more veteran ones.
Yeah.
What do you, like, just out of curiosity, what do you think's the most interesting thing you learned from being on SEMA's board this year? Like, since like you've been exposed to things you might not normally like be discussing or even necessarily thinking about or strategizing around.
For me, I'm still learning, like Amanda sort of touched on the policy and the sort of government advocacy. That's an area of the music industry that I've never been involved in and never even really paid much attention to. But now I realize like how important this is. And I'm still learning. I'm still trying to sink my teeth into those issues. They're massive and important, and I'm really glad to have some insight into it now. So yeah, that was definitely like a part of my learning curve. And then also just like, so I joined the equity committee, which I believe is new this year. And I think that's been a really important piece, and having a voice on that and ensuring that we are, making changes, positive changes, both within CIMA and just across the industry, has been really meaningful for me.
Yeah, totally. Basically, I feel the exact same. I guess the biggest thing I've learned is, it's not that I didn't know this, I guess, but I really didn't understand how directly tied to politics like the funding system is. And like that's a whole other can of worms that is life's work stuff basically. And that was, I'd say, my biggest eye-opening thing was like, oh, okay, this is how the money flows actually, and these are the things we need to be concerned about right now for the next like 10 years in the business. It's, I think, being an artist and an artist entrepreneur and kind of just like renegading in everywhere all the time, I was more reacting to things like at this level instead of looking at the big picture. And joining this board and having all the amazing knowledge at the table, that's what I learned the most for sure, is that there's like this whole other big picture thing going on that affects our day-to-day tasks, basically, as musicians, label
100%.
managers. Yeah, where you're like,
I echo that greatly. Like the idea that what CIMA is working on right now will affect changes 5 years from now is really something I don't think people realize. And also it goes back to the point of patting yourself on the back, Sema, because by the time those changes are in effect, or the money continues to flow, I don't think people realize like what it took to get there, which is that's definitely something I've learned over the last year.
Great answers. So something I previously alluded to at the top of the event was that you're both running for re-election this year. What led to you to want to make that decision? Why do you want to stay on Sema's board?
I'll go, I guess, this person. I've just loved the experience. Has it been a year? I can't even believe it if it has been. It feels like 5 seconds. But I have just met so many great people, and for the reason that Kesi just said, like the work is so important. I think for me, I believe I'm the only Indigenous person on the board. I'm pretty sure.
So that's correct.
That feels important, and just to hopefully try and represent my community as best as possible and bring those concerns and questions and requests, to work, basically whatever space I go to. So to be on this board just feels important to have presence here.
It is important to have your voice, Amanda. I appreciate that. I hope you stay. I am running again because I feel like there's just so much more to do. Like a year, it's just like a drop in the bucket. Some of these people have been on the board for many, many, many years, and it can take that long to affect change. And so I would love to keep going. Definitely spent this year learning a lot, and I wasn't afraid to use my voice in any way in any of the meetings, but I just feel like now I've got a good groove and understand how this works better. So hoping that the next year I can do more and say more. And I just feel like there's more to be done. So why stop?
Yeah.
I even just want to highlight the fact, like, just in terms of geography, like the fact that you're from Vancouver and Amanda's working out of Ottawa, like, we definitely always want to avoid being too Toronto centric because it's so easy to be in like Canada's music industry. So like it's really reassuring to have people who aren't in the bubble where like we can just sort of I don't know, I feel like it's so easy to like forget how vast Canada is. As Amanda previously mentioned, it's a huge landmass, and like there are so many different and disparate experiences happening all over, based on so many different like sort of identities, intersections, and everything. But yeah, you guys have been amazing voices on the board, and I'm very happy to have worked with both of you.
Great point. I feel like the West Coast is left out a lot
for sure,
and forgotten about, but we have a ton of great talent and and companies and entrepreneurs over here, and so I'm proud to bring that voice. And also, I think there maybe was a bit of a barrier before having I believe the CIMA board meetings were in person before the whole pandemic. And so now that they're mostly virtual, it's really opened it up to the rest of Canada. So, I would encourage other provinces to run as well.
For sure. Yeah, they used to be in person or via teleconference, but like I can just say flatly, like, having them on Zoom versus like having people when you like just sort of teleconference, then it's so easy to sort of just disconnect inherently because like you're not really there, you're not really like facing people. I don't know, it's just like I do definitely miss the in-person aspect of like pre-COVID life, but like I think Zoom has like really shown where we've been sort of flatlining on certain aspects of like our outreach and everything. And also just how like much more accessible programming is, generally speaking. But yeah. Okay.
You spend less time at the table eating wraps and stuff like that, drinking coffee, just do all the work.
Yeah, even like the administrative time I'd have to spend on ordering people lunch was ridiculous too.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with that anymore. So question for you, I'm gonna start off with Amanda for this one. what do you believe is the ideal sort of skill set or expertise that our board needs for now or the future?
Hmm.
Like, what should somebody think they should have if they're like hoping to step to the board, or any board, I think?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think a passion for whatever the subject is. So in this case, the music industry, not even just music, but making change in structures. And if you see, I think that it's good to be a person that sees where the gaps are, or like where things could maybe be better, thoughts like that. And I think that it's also easy to be hard on yourself, like, I don't have any ideas, or I don't know, or whatever, but just we all have something to contribute. So as far as joining a board, specifically the SEMA board, I think, yeah, just having a real fire to change things, and be open to learning. And even if something feels like you don't understand, just having that kind of drive to like have conversations, just talk about things till you learn it, read stuff till you figure it out. I think that those are good skills to have. And yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I would echo that too. I also think just like an awareness of your community, no matter what your community is. But I think everyone belongs to some sort of community, whether it's, you're an independent artist, or you're in the, if you're, I don't know, whatever your community is. If you are aware of like what that community's challenges are, barriers, or successes, or whatever it is, you can bring that into the board. Like, representation matters. So bringing that voice in, no matter what the community or space is, would be really beneficial to everyone else on the board as well.
Great points. I think something I'd like to sort of jump back onto from one of Amanda's points was just like sort of having a voice. Something I feel like I can attest to in being the liaison to the board of directors is you both are really quick to have a word in if you have an opinion on something. I noticed that I think the number 2 answer to the poll of hesitancy for joining a board was lack of expertise or shyness. Like, so I guess the question for you guys is like, do you have any advice to overcoming like feelings of shyness on being on a board, like, or feeling intimidated or anything like that? Like, what sort of gives you the confidence to feel like you can put in a word, like in any sort of subject? I'll start off with Kesi for this one.
That's a good question, because it can be intimidating. I think you just have to leap in, because as soon as you were to join a board like CIMA, you would see how welcoming it is and how easy it is to know that whatever your opinion is, it will be accepted. But it can be a challenge to get over that anxiety. But know that you're bringing something to the table, and there's a purpose for you being there. Like, your opinion is wanted in this space. So it's safe for you to express that, and it's everybody here is given a chance to speak. There's we all have to vote on certain issues, and there's a wide forum for using your voice, and patience for it too. If you don't want to speak on one meeting, you don't have to, and there's other ways of reaching out to you. So and there's the smaller committees, and there's like email and whatever way of communicating. So there's a few opportunities to use your voice in the best way, but just know that you are there for a purpose. And I think that's kind of the first step.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome. It's so true. And I think I was trying to decide if Zoom makes it easier or harder, to participate. But aside from that, I echo that, like, our entire ecosystem benefits when everyone has a voice. We all have unique gifts and bring different things to the table, like, that aren't the exact same as anybody else, and that's what makes the whole greater. And not like the whole, but the W whole. And and even just sort of practical things, because I get really nervous sometimes if I feel like I'm gonna like and I'm a singer, which is, so that's funny, but I'll make notes. Like if there's something that's really important to me, and especially on Zoom, because you can pull up another application or whatever, like I'll list things out that I want to make sure that I touch on if I know we're going to be talking about something specific, so that I don't get all wrapped up in my anxiety, because I have that, and I can ensure that I'm bringing exactly what I want to the meeting. That's just like a little practical tip. I just open notes or Word and just have like a little set of list items in case I forget or get nervous or whatever. And that's in any scenario. And it's just like anything else. You just have to do it. You just have to answer. And for me, I'll notice like, okay, I'm noticing all the nervous feelings, but there they are. And I'm just going to say it anyway. You know, it's okay to have those feelings and still use your voice. There's not one or the other. Like, maybe you're not going to automatically feel super relaxed and like you can say what you need, you know, just to remember that.
Yeah, I think also like it helps to know that SEMA, the board covers so many different topics across so many different issues. So if you don't have a strong opinion or don't know anything about politics, you know, that might not be your angle, but there's so many other ways to contribute too. So you know, whatever is close to your heart, you can speak on that. And like there's many ways to contribute. It's not just one policy or funding or whatever the issue is. There's many other topics that we discuss.
Oh, for sure. Amazing points. I even think something that's worth adding too is like, I think sometimes when people are in a group setting, whether it's on a board or on a committee or like in a band or whatever, like I think that something people sort of forget is that like your comment doesn't need to be like mind-blowing or like brilliant or genius. Like a comment can just be a reminder of something basic that a lot of people can forget about. Like it could just be like, I think some people might even think this is trivial, but like even just reminding people of the time, I think is important. You know, everybody's time is valuable, and like it's really worth being aware of how you're managing that time, how you're managing time on a subject. Like it's important. Like I think a key thing when it comes to participation is just remembering that like anything you have to say, especially because you're in that group accepts you, it believes in you, and definitely wants to see you sort of advance. Especially, I would say, a board like SEMA's, like anything you have to say is cherished, I would say. Yeah. And I take all the notes, so I could say I can say, at least in my opinion, I see anything you guys have to say as a cherished point. Okay, my next sort of question, I guess this is sort of leapfrogging off of the past one, but do you have any advice for any prospective members considering a run for this year's election? What do you wish that you knew upon joining the board last year?
I think just do it. If you're considering it, just do it. Like there's no harm. The worst that can happen is you don't make it on and you try again next year. There's no harm in trying. And, you know, I guess what I wish I knew before was just how involved SEMA is and how many issues that it covers and how many ways there are to contribute. Like I was just saying, I've just found it so valuable to be on the equity committee. And also I've been participating in like membership in seminar planning. And so we put together like an HR series this year that I was really proud of because I work in HR and it's something that I didn't know I could bring to the table here, but it's something I know deeply. And I was happy to offer my voice there. Just, you might not like recognize a skill set that you have that you can kind of tune into through this panel. So yeah, I guess I wish I knew more about what SEMA does before before this happened, before I leapt into it. So take a look through the site and maybe like contact Matt and ask questions if you have questions or ask them here. But just do it.
Ditto. I don't know what else to add. Just I think that if you're thinking about it, it's a really cool experience, and it's not like a, you know, you're not signing up for 50 years or the rest of your life or anything like that. Like it's a really cool experience, and it's a great way to meet people and learn new things. And yeah, that's say just jump in. And same, like the one thing I wish I had known perhaps before even just the first meeting was just taking time to read through some of the materials a little more, admittedly, but at the same time, because the organization is so welcoming, specifically the board, you know, it was a real smooth, okay, let's go, let's do this.
No doubt. I noticed there was a comment in the chat just asking, the commenter said, I am not yet a member of CIMA, but I'm on Ontario Creates. Does that matter? I'm not sure if this person's saying they work for Ontario Creates or they're on an Ontario Creates advisory committee or board. If you work for Ontario Creates, I don't believe you can run for the board since you're a funder. That would be like a conflict of interest to have you on our board. But oh, just a member of Ontario Creates? Oh, sorry. It's kind of funny how I'm sort of fielding this. But this person's saying they're a member of Ontario Creates. As long as they join CIMA, if you join CIMA as a member, then you should be fine to run for the board of directors. But just sort of jumping back to this, what do you believe are the critical issues affecting the music industry that the board is addressing right now? And do you hope to see the board tackle any particular issues soon?
I think, well, there's an election coming, so I feel like stuff's just weird. But diversity and inclusion work is huge. It's so huge because once you start, I'll speak for myself. Once I have started working in this way, like on boards and at an organizational level, instead of just an artist, you quickly realize that, there's not a lot of diversity everywhere. Let's put it that way. So that's I think that work is super important on every single level, like from people that work at venues to, boards to whatever, you name it, whoever's in the music business and on whatever level, like that work is probably the most important. And then I think the work that we were doing with the response to the CRTC call, I don't, obviously that, with the election happening and stuff, I'm not sure where that landed, to be honest, but that work and trying to continue to build opportunities for artists that have typically been left out of the conversation and left out of, everywhere. That work feels really important to me. And I believe CIMA is really invested in that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'd say that, so there was like Bill C-10 happening prior to this election. I think that's a big element of what we've been discussing and will be moving forward, just in terms of how that conversation around intellectual property rights and education how that will look, and what the strategy would be moving forward, I think is something I've been learning about, and excited to see what CIMA comes up with in the future in regards to that. There's a new president at CIMA, so I'm excited to see what the strategy will be moving forward and just what sort of changes are implemented, both in terms of diversity, membership, and transparency, and all the things that we've sort of spoken about here already. But I think that there's a lot of great ideas floating around in terms of what CIMA will be in the next 10 years. And I think that's really exciting. And then just sort of continuing on with what I've been doing in terms of coming up with seminars and development opportunities for the members and adding value, I think is really important, and I'm happy to contribute that way. So I'm looking forward to addressing more of that in the future.
Awesome. Something I'll actually just sort of cover quickly, because I've been getting a couple comments just about like general housekeeping about like what it means to run for the board, like expectations, what a conflict could be if they want to join the board. So I'm just going to address some of those questions really quick. So first thing I'm going to actually address, a commenter had a question about how do you get on or how do you participate on a committee? I can tell you now that unfortunately the process hasn't really been streamlined as of yet, but we are working on sort of creating more of a policy behind how to join a committee. I think the best thing I could say to that commenter is if you sent me an email at matt@semamusic.ca, I will definitely register your interest in committees. We have a number of different committees, all tackling different sort of subjects, whether it's related to membership or programming or equity or government affairs or even just like sort of finance. Like we have a lot of stuff going on. So please feel free to check our website to see more about like what committees we have going on. But if you could send me an email, I'll actually just put my email in the chat for everyone in case you want to send me an email about whether you're interested in the board or committees. Like I'd be happy to field your questions or even just register your interest for the next term. But something else I also want to field really quick is this is a really good election to run in for a number of reasons, but one of them is that we have 8 incumbent board members running and there's 10 open chairs. So it's actually fairly competitive. So I really hope that people do decide to run for the board this year. We definitely need to hear more voices, especially your voice. So please participate, run for election. It's really easy to do so. It's just basically you need to give some basic information, whether it's your name, your company, your past participation on committees, as well as just like 100-word paragraph about why you think you'd be a great board member. And we'll host everybody's like sort of essays, or I guess everybody's materials rather, on our newsletters. So like we would definitely want to know you and we want to share you with the membership. Another question I'm just sort of getting in right now is how does the vote work? So 3 different classes of members are able to vote. We have Class C's who have a vote worth 1 vote, Class B's who have a vote worth 5 votes, and Class A's who have a vote worth 8 votes. So like depending on your class, you'll get to vote for a certain amount of weight. The ballots will be transmitted electronically directly to members. There will be further emails about that in October, like about a month before the election. And also like just generally speaking, when it comes to conflicts on being on the board, I think the key conflicts are just related to funding. So like if you fund SEMA in any way, I don't think you can be on the board because that'd be an inherent conflict. Also, your company has to be a SEMA member and 100% Canadian owned and control. I think that's everything. Oh, and also just general expectations of the board. Currently, we have about, I think, 10 meetings annually, and we need you to show up to at least 75% of those meetings. Although there's a good chance we might be limiting the meetings a bit just to avoid burnout and make sure that we're managing our board members' time. We care about you guys. We care about you, Amanda and Kesi. We definitely want to make sure that people who join our board are happy to stay on it for years and years to come. Yeah. And you know what, just this last question, I got this from the sort of pre-poll in applying for this event. I don't know if you guys are happy to comment on it, but it was just a question on what can we do to address the very poor streaming payouts from companies like Spotify as a collective? Can we be calling on the government to address these issues? You guys actually briefly commented on Bill C-10, which sort of addressed it in some ways. Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, you can join the board.
Yeah.
And use your voice to advocate for policy changes. That's what it takes, really. Like we need to be in the government's face, and meeting with these partners and DSPs to figure it out. So the things that SEMA is doing now, again, will reflect on changes that happen many years from now. And if we don't protect those rights right now, we will not have a chance to do that later. So yeah, you can run for the board.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, the policy work and the advocacy work, while maybe it sounds less sexy, it's probably the most important. And this question comes up so often, like, how are we gonna get better royalties, better payouts, from DSPs? And, it's gonna take a bit for sure to do that. But I love the the join the board suggestion, and it's what it's going to take. We're all going to have to do this work on this board, but also across the industry.
For sure. I don't know if there are any other questions. Something I'm just going to put in the chat is a link to the Surveymonkey page to apply for the board. I honestly don't think it should take more than maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, in case like you need a bit of time to sort of come up with that like answer on why you think you'd be able to contribute to the board. But like, we'd definitely be happy to see you run. And another question from Pat is, what membership level do you need to be to run? So Class A's, B's, and C's are eligible to run for SEMA's board. So like, as long as you're an A, B, or C, 100% Canadian owned and controlled, it's like the key sort of requirements in order to be eligible to run for the board. But yeah, we definitely want to see the people who showed up to this event show up to run. We hope to see more people run. We're trying to have a very engaged membership. Question from John about what defines a member's voting class. So quick answer to that, it's based on your annual revenues, unless you're an affiliate member, in which case it would just be based on the fact you're an affiliate member, which means you're not directly like working in the music industry, you're more sort of an adjacent music industry position. But yeah, I don't know if anyone has any other questions. I'm happy to field a couple, or Amanda and Kesi might be. We've got about 10 minutes left, or we could wrap early. But thank you both, Amanda and Kesi, for showing up, contributing so much, and thank you for the people who were able to come and contribute their questions. We're definitely happy to host all of you.
Yeah, miigwech. Thanks for doing such a great job with the questions and moderating and yeah, being just generally awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was easy and great. And we both dropped our emails in the chat. If anybody has any questions, you're totally welcome to reach out to me.
Ditto.
Yeah. And if you're voting class members, make sure you vote for Amanda and Kesi.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think with that, we'll just wrap. Thank you both so much for your time. And again, if you're interested in running for the board, the deadline is September 24th. I think that's 2 Fridays from now. So please run for the board. Yeah. But yeah, thank you yet again. I really appreciate your time and your amazing answers. Great event.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Sema.
Thank you.
Cheers.